I do now want to switch gears just a little bit to another story. It's been a little over a week since the story dubbed Signalgate has broken. And just to recap, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic says he was inadvertently added to a group chat with the nation's top security leaders that detailed U.S. plans to conduct an airstrike against the Houthis in Yemen. As I said, it's been a little over a week since this story broke. What questions do you still have?
Well, Brittany, we had the DNI, so the Director of National Intelligence, the head of the FBI, the head of the CIA, the head of the National Security Agency, and the Defense Intelligence Agency in front of the Intelligence Committee, on which I serve, about a day or two after this information broke, that they were sharing information on the unsecured commercial platform Signal. It's very dangerous. And what the Secretary of Defense did, putting highly sensitive, classified information on this platform, was reckless, and it could have put pilots in serious jeopardy. There's a lot of information that we still don't have. I'd say at the top of the list is how many other times have they shared information on other signal chains? Who were on those? Were there anybody else that was inadvertently added, like a journalist, or maybe even worse than that, maybe a foreign national, somebody in another country? And for our adversaries to see what kind of deliberations that our national security leaders take before deciding to strike another country, seeing that deliberation online, as they all did, that puts us at additional risk. So I want to know what other signal chains are out there, who was on them, what information was shared, and then what are the steps we need to take to make sure that they stop doing this. Nobody has given me any indication that they're going to knock this off and start doing this the way they're supposed to, which is in a secure facility on secure communications equipment.
How do you want to see the administration rectify this? Because you said you've called for the resignation of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Do you think anyone else has to go? I mean, what does that look like?
Well, I think there's a big difference between somebody being careless. And when this signal chain was set up, it was pretty obvious that the person who set it up did not intend to have a bunch of classified information shared. That was done by the Secretary of Defense. So there's a difference between carelessness and recklessness. And I believe that the Secretary of Defense was the reckless party here. And if he doesn't resign, the president should just fire him. He's putting our service members at risk. He did that once. I'm concerned he's going to do that again. He was unqualified for this job. That's why I didn't vote for him. And I called out my Republican colleagues about the risks of putting this unqualified individual who spent the last 9 years, no offense, Brittany, to your profession. Journalism is so important to our country, but it does not prepare you to manage the U.S. Department of Defense. And this is month 2, or maybe month 3 of this administration now. We've got a long way to go, and I'm concerned that Pete Hegseth is going to make other mistakes that aren't going to, put people at risk, but they're actually going to get hurt.
Senator, you are not offending me. I mean, I am a journalist and I would not be qualified to serve as defense secretary. However, I am related to a few veterans, and I want to know, from your perspective as a veteran, you see what exactly Pete Hegseth as defense secretary texted out over Signal. There's arguments of semantics. Was it a war plan? Was it an attack plan? You see that. What are you thinking?
Well, Brittany, I'll give him that this was not a war plan. A war plan would include joint forces and maybe our allies, and how are you going to resupply? And it would be much more comprehensive than what he put on Signal. What he put on this unsecured commercial app that our allies can access. Well, our allies, our adversaries can get access to. What they put there were critical details of a strike plan. You have pilots that are planning these missions on the aircraft carriers. They're going to fly them. They're going to go into harm's way. The most critical information is where are the aircraft coming from? What time are they launching? What time are they going to be over the target? What kind of airplanes are they? maybe on top of that, what kind of weapon systems, or certainly maybe something else that actually wasn't there is what's going to be the plan for the suppression of enemy air defenses. But the first five things were shared, and that's the most critical information. You know, as any kind of operator in the military, whether you're a pilot or you're an infantry guy, special forces, some of the most critical information that you possess, often just in your head, is what's going to happen in the next few hours with regards to any conflict or tomorrow or the next day. After that, most people don't have a lot of information. But the time of launch, down to the minute, by the way, Brittany, this wasn't like around 3 p.m. It said something like 15:26. I mean, down to the very minute, and the time on target down to the minute. What this means to the Houthis, if they had this information, and to be fair, all indications are they did not. But if they had the information, they really don't need to have their early warning system, radar system, working as well as it would otherwise need to work. They know where to look. They know what's coming. They could get everybody alert to the fact that there's an impending strike, and it makes it much, much easier to shoot those airplanes down. And I'm speaking from, I'm a guy who's almost been shot down a bunch of times. I've had an SA-6 on my first of 39 combat missions blow up next to my airplane. Yemen has SA-6s and SA-3s in the country that would have been targeting those F-18 airplanes. This was a reckless move by our Secretary of Defense. And Brittany, if he would have shared that information like a day later or hours after the airplanes got back to the aircraft carrier, it would not have been that big of a deal. But beforehand, it is reckless.